Hold on, I need to now do my mute all
What happened? Why did you?
and ask Kim to unmute. Okay, Kim, you should be able to unmute yourself.
I believe I am.
Okay, great. I will mute myself. Okay.
Okay. Ready, everybody? Good morning. And wow, it's been like a perfect spring week. Cool and April-like in the morning, but then nice warm in the afternoon for a walk. So hopefully you'll all put my coffee cup down there before I spill it in the computer. Hope you all get some time outside, and maybe this whole walk will pique your interest. The reason we called this a mystery walk at the beginning was because when we set up the series, I had no idea what I was going to do on this day. So I said, well, we'll just, and then I decided to go with that and open up, put this sort of evocative photo up to say, do you know where this is? This is a publicly available walk. So what we're doing is a loop, and I'll show you my, oops. Oh, we always seem to have this problem. Why won't it advance? Yeah. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to escape for a second, maybe. Yes, talk amongst yourself while I reset somehow.
No worries, Kim. We always have a glitch. We can't, you know.
Oops, there.
Okay.
I don't know if it went or something's not working right though, so I gotta stop sharing for a second.
And you did mention that your mouse was kind of glitchy.
It's glitching. Let's see if I can, is it working now? Yeah, it's working now. Okay, now talking to myself, hoping you're talking to yourself. There we go. Okay, so here's the Google map of where we're going, the loop, and I'm just pointed a few more.
Kim, we're not seeing it yet.
Oh, you're not shared. Okay. Back again. Share screen.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, hopefully that is going to work. I had pointed out on this things that we're going to see. Warden's Pond, a pond that I don't know the name of if it has one, a swamp I don't know the name of if it has one, Kunamus Road, just help get your bearings. We'll be starting out here at the beginning of Dickens Farm Road, and we'll be wending our way this way to a public right of way that's right about here. So just to give you, here's the first part. And then we'll go along the beach and then back up to the beginning of Dickens Farm. So it's a big loop. It's just to say, it's the current Google map is not that much different than the old 1890s Stonewall map. The same Warden's Pond, Swamp, Pond, Kunamus Swamp, all there, Kunamus Road. This is an emblem for what's called what was a life-saving station. And again, here's the route that we'll be taking over the beach and then back up part of Kunamus Road. Now, we're going to be focusing at one point, not always, but where the pedestrian right-of-way is to the beach, because it's not always, it is not marked with signage. So you're going to have to commit this Zoom to memory. But this is a plat map, and we're going to be focusing on these three plats. So this lot 17 was subdivided back in the mid-1980s, 1984. And in that subdivision, it created these 5 lots. And the requirement of the planning board was to create and maintain a public pedestrian right-of-way to the beach. It's an 8-foot right-of-way, and it's deeded to the town of New Sherm for the public, as well as the access along what I think most people probably call Southwest Point Road. So I'll be going over Southwest Point Road, pointing out some landmarks, and you'll see that we're focusing on this area. Here's the right of way. It's right on this is the plat map, the town plat map. It says right there, 8-foot pedestrian right of way. And it even shows an area here and an area here. The deed allows for 4 parking spaces. Good luck finding room for 4 cars, but there are widths in the road and you can pull off the side and you can legitimately find a spot in this corner. This is a photocopy of the actual plat, 1984 subdivision plat that shows it from which the town plat record. So this is well documented, public right of way, open to the public of Black Island and its visitors. So we will start at Dickens Farm Road and Kunamus Road. This is just up from Warden's Pond. And I'm not sure at the moment that it even has a sign that says Dickens Farm Road. It did at one point. If it did, it's hard to find, but you'll just start off going down that way and you just walk in. And as you go down the road, you come to an area where if you go to the left, you'll see strong signage for the Wind Dodge Preserve. If you go straight, you go to a private residence. And if you go right, you go down the road and you're still on Dickens Farm Road. And this road is 40 feet wide. So you will be able to readily identify the main artery. The driveways tend to be less than 40 feet. But this is a 40-foot wide road, which was a requirement at the time of the subdivision regulations. So there we go. Now, as you go down that hill to the right and around the corner, there's on the left, there's a swamp, and it's grown up pretty much. At this time of year, you can see through and you can see that there's water there. You can see over there. If you're a little short, as I am, in most of the season, you can't really see the open water, but you can hear stuff out there. Ducks and geese and things splashing around. This is a great swamp. On at least 2 occasions, I've seen spotted turtles crossing the road, which they really like a muddy swamp area. I've seen snapping turtles laying eggs. So there's all kinds, even though this is a wide road that we're going to be traveling for this first part, there's all kinds of wonderful things to see just by observing as you go. And even at this, late winter, barely spring time of year, there's the signs of greening, sphagnum moss in here amongst the wet edge, and even on the trunks of a lot of high bush blueberry along here, which will be blooming shortly with little tiny white bell-like flowers. And, my favorite lichens, a green shield lichen, just sort of patches of, I don't know, it's sort of like, you get a scout patch for accomplishing something. You have green lichen patches on the trees for accomplishing age, which is a good thing to reach. So just enjoy the sights as you go along, and you'll suddenly Canada geese flying overhead. They were on the pond. I couldn't see them until they got up in the air. So, but now we'll shortly, right after that little swampy pond area, you'll come to a point where the road bears sort of straight and leftish. That's the continuation of Dickens Farm Road, which you could walk out to get to the Dickens Farm Preserve. But today we're going right onto Southwest Point Road. And this is where, again, this not marked with a sign. So this does have an electric box transformer thing right there. And as you go, go around. Oops, I had to stop and see what was calling to me in the tree right behind me. And it was a yellow-bellied sapsucker. And this one actually has a little yellow cast to its belly, which you don't always see. You think the red is what's the most defining feature. But since there is a red-headed woodpecker, you really couldn't use the red. So we went for the yellow-bellied sapsucker. This is a nice male in spring plumage. So you just never know what might be flying around. So as we make that corner, you see one of the first things you see is this black pine. So you're on the right way. And this time of year, you look at the black pines, and even they are beautiful. That sort of the spring green, chlorophyll is flowing, and you had the form of the pine branch, and then the growing of these pollen. This is a pollen producing apparatus, and it's going to get taller as the spring goes on. And then a couple of weeks, the air will be full of like light, very light dusting of yellow pollen. If you live anywhere near these, you're familiar with them, but they are around the island. And if you park in one place when the pollen is released, your car is going to have this like yellowy dust on it. But what's cool about almost all plants are that there are male and female parts, and conifers produce cones, and the cones, within the cones are the seeds. And the male cones are very small, and they're really associated with these pollen producing structures. But the female cones are bigger, and then they're closed at first, and then as they open up, dry out, the seeds are at the very base of these. But you know, it's not about how does a pine cone form for me. It's just so beautiful. I mean, the structures are just so beautiful. So I couldn't take my eye off of it. So you've just been subjected to pine cones. As we go along, moss, this is a great time of year for moss. Just when I think I know what moss it is, I thought it was pincushion moss, but it's not. And I looked at it a little more closely, and I realized that it's something called red shank moss. And the mosses right now also are amazing. They're producing spores. So these are the spore heads, these filaments, and at the top of this, there's these little caps. In the case, and each in the case of moss, the little shank in this case is topped with a distinctive shaped spore cap, and the spores developing inside there. And at some point that will ripen and be fully developed, and the cap will come off and the spores will be dispersed. And you can identify a moss often by the shape of its spore cap. That is, of course, if you can see it, which is not always that easy because it's very small and it's only for a short time of year. And I just took this photo down here to show that there's in this very bit of moss, there's some over here that still have their spore caps, and there's some here that have already lost their spore caps. So they just look like bristles, little, and you can see why it's called red shank moss. So, but amazingly beautiful if you can see the minute. And as I often say, just the texture and the color of the ground is just beautiful, even if you can't name it. And this is, you know, some early leaves. At first I thought it might be mouse-eared hawkweed leaves, but I don't believe it is. I believe it's something else. They're a little bit too coarse. And then amongst that is some of the red shank moss that's a slightly different colors. It's more reddish. As you look at that, and here's some really beautiful red, velvety almost looking, same species, but it's not just red shank moss in here. There's other things. And if you take a note, there's these little white speckles in here, and here's a little bit bigger speckle. And I looked closer and closer and pulled up a little piece and held it up to my eye, and a little tuft, and I could see these forms. And I looked even closer, and it's called pixie. It's a type of lichen called a pixie cup lichen. And that's not this one. There are many in this group called pixie cup lichens, and this is a particular one, which I'm not sure which one, but I'm happy to get it to the group. And again, lichens are just incredible. They are a symbiotic organism that is comprised of a fungi and an algae. And the algae produces a green or blue-green algae that is in the organism, which produces, has chlorophyll and can do can have photosynthesis to produce energy. And the fungi part breaks down the substrate and provides nutrients to the organism. So it's a true, both parties benefit, and we benefit by having these amazing little structures and beautiful little things out there in nature. You just have to remember to look closely. If you can't walk far, look close. And so as we go along the road, I looked up and there we have one of our earliest, there are several early blooming things, but this is the red maple, which is in bloom right now on Block Island. A beautiful little flower, gives a lot of, you can tell a red maple now if you look, it's got this, you'll see a tree with like a red haze and it kind of looks like that. But if you look at the closely, you look at the flowers of the red maple, and again, they're stunning. They're just beautiful. They so that's growing sort of near the pond that I spoke about, that I don't know that it has a name, but on the pond there is some bird life. There's a couple of ring-necked ducks. There's male and female. The ducks are great in the winter, but this species will be leaving the island soon, if not already. So our winter duck season is over, and now we're starting to see some early migrants. And one of the earliest migrants that we see is the osprey. And we have a new osprey pole up on this road in Nancy Ruddle's yard, which is right, butts this pond. And this is a female osprey. You can tell by the sort of the collar, the breast collar. It's sort of the reverse of RBG's white collar. So we'll consider this a wonderful creature. And although I did not see the male, I heard it calling when I was here. So I know it's in the area. And a week before I took the photo, there were no sticks on this platform. So this is an active nest being built, and with any luck, we'll have a third active osprey nest platform on the island. So I'm very anxious to see what develops here. A lot of times with osprey pairs, they're not that successful the first couple of years. They might make a nest and then figure out, well, I don't know what to do now, and they don't do anything, or the eggs don't form, or they don't make the nest good enough and the eggs fall through, or so you never know. But I'm optimistic. There've been osprey kind of flying around this area for a couple of years, which is why they put the pole up. And so we'll see what happens as the year goes on. And because you're on the public right away, you can walk down this road and easily observe this platform and see for yourself what's going on. So the road is got a lot of side roads that go to people's residences, which of course you don't want to go down, but the main artery is pretty obvious, and you just sort of follow it, and it sort of wends its way southerly or leftish, but there are corners, and we're going to be going around the corner here. And as you go around the corner here, the house inside the corner is this very distinctive octagon house, which you can see from the road. So if you can see that, you know you're on the right, you're going in the right direction. And I will say that I'll say that later. You get to the point where you're like, whoa, where do I go now? You're at a 5-way intersection. You're at the road that you've just come down, right? You've just walked down here, and now either you can go that way, or you can go that way, or you can go that way. So now we're at the spot where the right-of-way starts and where the parking area is. And this area right along here, sort of out of view, there is definitely room for a few cars to park there. And if you park there, you are legitimately parked on the town right-of-way. This area is supposed to also be parking, but we might have to talk with the landowner about that at some point. But when I grew up, none of these houses were here. There was this old road, and it came and it went on like that. And that is a true Block Island road, not 40 feet wide, has a nice little crown in it. And that goes out to a private residence now. But I grew up on High Street and near the school. And when I was a teenager and would have altercations with my parents, I would get on my bike and ride as hard and as fast as I could to this area, because there were no houses here. And by the time I got there, my energy was spent and I was a little calmed down, and I could walk down to the hill and go down to the beach and kind of regroup, because, you know, Block Island is pretty hard to run away from home. You know, the timing never works with the boat. So I usually, that was enough to get things back down under control. So this is an area that's pretty dear to my heart, even with the huge amount of development that's gone on in this area since the mid 1980s. Now, how do you find the path? If you go a little further, you take a different view. Again, here's that road that goes out, the old road. And if you go a little farther, you take that road to the right, and you see this road, and you've gone too far. Here's the path. You just have to find the beginning of it. And the beginning, here's the road. We were standing here where I took that last picture. And this tree and this rock mark the path. And although I didn't do it this time, I think that's a good place to look for orbs someday, because I want people to enjoy this place. So there's not one there now, so don't go looking, Cindy, but or at least I didn't put one there now. Anyway, look for that stone, and that and you're on your way to the path that is the 8-foot wide pedestrian right-of-way, open to the public, as is the whole road that we just walked down to get here. And that didn't always have stone walls, but the homeowners on either side decided to put in the stone walls to you know, make sure, I guess, nobody wandered off. But it makes it a really nice feature, and it's really clear where you can be. And I think it's delightful, and you can walk down the path. And oops, maybe I'll go back there. I guess I covered that. The 8-foot pedestrian right of way in 1984 subdivision. It's our path. And it's a fairly easy, mostly slope to take and clear, very walkable. And as you get down, until you get near the end, there's a little erosion, but it's still not very steep, and you can pick your way along fairly well. And at the end, there's a little bit of I'll show shortly, just a step down off of the bluff. But always like to look, you know, now we're going to go offshore a little bit and look at the red can. That's sort of, some old timers call the bell buoys red cans. So off in the distance, you can see the red can. And if you look closely, there it is. It's a bell buoy, and they rock back and forth and make the sound of a bell buoy. And if you've ever wondered how it worked, you can see here's the bell and here's the clangor right here. So when it rocks one way because of the sea, that clangor hits the bell. And when it rocks the other way, the clangor moves away and another clangor hits it. Now, I could only see 3 clangors on this bell buoy, but 3 is enough. There's 2, one here, and the one here. I could not see the one that would probably be on this side, but never mind. It's out there, and it's one of the best sounds on Block Island. There are many best sounds on Block Island, but I don't know, there's something, maybe it's harkening back to those teenage years, but when you go down there and it's peaceful ocean, or it's a loud ocean, you can hear that bell buoy going, and it settles the heart and mind. So down we go. I've come down to a little bit of a bluff, and I've looked back to see where the path is, and you can, you know, make out the path. It's a little bit of a stepping, but not too bad. Here's a wide view. If you're not going to do a loop and you're going to come back this way after doing a little beach walking, turn around and get your bearings, get your field marks. There's this, at least for now, there's this big rock right here that marks the beginning of the path. There's 3 roofs. This is the one you're headed for. So we're going to continue on along the beach. It's a Cobbly Beach right now at low tide. As you get down near the closer to the water, you can see it's a little bit easier going. So it's very doable at this time of year. Sand seems to build in along this coastline during the spring and summer. So as the year goes on, you get more beach. But right now, I prefer to walk here at low tide. I don't mind a few cobbles, but I don't want a quarter mile of cobbles shifting under my feet. But you can walk along here and pretty easily pull you along. So onward we go. And first thing I found was this beautiful moon snail shell wedged in the rocks. And again, it's about the form, the color, the texture. You could tell that this is really smooth. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful animal. And this beach has a lot of moon snail shells on it. I've never found a live one. I've rarely found a whole one. This one happens to be whole. It's not the same as this one, but you can see they have a distinctive color and patterning. And why are they called moon snails? Well, I think you can see. It's very evocative of the moon itself. So onward we go, and you got to pick your way. I always say when I'm walking on the beach or not have anybody with me, stop and look. Don't walk and look, because there are too many things to trip over while you're gazing at the ocean or the bluff. So keep your head down, look where you're putting your feet, and you never know what you might find. There's a treasure right there in front of us. Right there in front of us. Trash and treasure buried in the sand. Might have walked over it if I wasn't watching my feet. And it is interestingly, I did not place this. This is how it's found in situ. The egg case of a knobbed whelk and a piece of styrofoam. Trash and treasure. So here's the egg case after I kind of pulled it gently out of the sand, because of course this was a great treasure to find along with all the other treasures I'd been finding. And here is the same one after it's had a chance to dry out and shake out all the muddy sand out of it a couple of days later. So this is called an egg case. It's for a knobbed whelk. There are many types of whelks, or channeled whelks, common whelks, knobbed whelks. And they're like conchs, the shell that you put up to your ear and listen to the ocean. But their egg cases always look slightly different depending on the species. And in this case, these little packets have a very squared off edge. That's indicative of the knobbed whelk. A channeled whelk, these little packets come to a little pointy edge. So this is a knobbed whelk egg case. And inside each one of these packets, and you can sort of see it, it's not the best photo, but it's sort of, the packet's sort of translucent. And you see in there are little tiny whelks, tiny, tiny, tiny whelks. And each packet has tens of them. This one is pretty old and dried out. When I opened it up, I kind of destroyed a lot of them. This one was not viable because they need to, these packets normally get this whole egg case string gets attached to something on the bottom of the ocean. And when the little tiny whelks are developed enough and big enough, there'll be a little opening right at the edge, right about here. And they will come out of that and then disperse into the ocean. If they get washed up by the surf and thrown up on the beach and dried out, then they're no longer viable. So then they come home with me to become part of a art and nature drawing sessions and being able to explain what these wonderful forms are. It's an amazing thing. If you have a chance, go on the internet and look at a whelk extruding. The female whelk extrudes this curlicule of egg casing out of her body and then leaves it behind for the whelks. They're fully formed in here to develop. Of course, there's other things to find on the beach. Trash, all kinds of trash. My least favorite is not the styrofoam. it is balloons. And I was pretty, we always find balloons. It's one of the few things, I wouldn't say the few things, but it's one thing I'm sure to pick up if I can when I'm walking on the beach, because they are hazardous to marine animals, birds and mammals and turtles. Sea turtles think they're jellyfish and eat them, and that can be the demise of the animal. So balloons are terrible things. So they are the trash opposed to my treasure. Now, every once in a while, not every once in a while, more often than I care to admit, I go off on one of these walks and I don't take anything with me to carry back my treasures, the things I want to look at more closely when I get home. So for this whole walk, I've been picking up a little bit of red shank moss, a little bit of pixie cup lichen. Now I've got a moon snail and a whelk egg case, and I have short hands and I need one hand to keep myself steady. And I'm like, oh boy, Kim, bring a bag next time. Well, I found a bag. So the balloon became my carrying bag, and I was able to put it to use at least for a short bit. So before I could dispose of it properly. Yeah, okay, end of lecture. Other things, this is the colorful section of my presentation. Other trash. Find a lot of fishing debris washed up. This is an amazing mass of fishing line and monofilament and floats, and the color is beautiful, but it definitely exudes overall blue. But this mass I saw on Gracie's Cove Beach in 2020, and with 3 other people tried to move it and to remove it. It weighs way too much weight. We had it rolled over on, I had this idea that I would get 5 or 6 people and we would roll it over onto a tarp and lift it up off of the beach. And we found some young guys who were swimming and they helped us, and we got it about 20 feet. And I couldn't get it any further, but it's making its way down the beach. It's now just past Kunamus Cove. And it adds some interesting things to look at along the way. I think it shouldn't be there, but it's kind of pretty. And here's another color, green. Green algae or green seaweed also has a growing season, like most of the plants that we have on the land. And it is growing like crazy right now. So the rocks have not been this bright with the velvet green of algae all winter. And now they're going through a growth spurt, so that at the edge of the ocean, low tide, this will be completely covered at high tide. This year's green algae is starting to grow. And then here's the yellow. We've had the blue, the green, and now the yellow. If you look up at the edge, you see this little band of little yellow dots. This is one of the earliest blooming flowers on the island. This is colt's foot. And it's, again, once you look at it more closely, again, that looks very small, but you look at it more closely and it gets more and more beautiful with each look and more interesting. You notice it doesn't have, you might think it's a dandelion, but it has these funny, like sheath-like leaves, not real leaves. They're more like scales. And the flower comes out through this bud, and this little bud will grow up to the scaly stem, and then this sort of fuzzy looking, wonderful yellow flower. So colt's foot. And on we go along the beach. And there's a lot of wood on the beach, the lumber yard. I grew up knowing this area was called the lumber yard because it's where on Block Island, because of the currents, a lot of lumber would fetch up. Not lumber like you get at Tiny's lumberyard, but lumber that you can still use. You can use it for building houses. There are many old houses that have pieces of lumber and old tree trunks that are part of their structure. Many of them have probably been replaced now, but many people use lumber from the lumberyard for building things, fences and outbuildings, chicken coops, a ready supply for centuries now of wood. You just have to go down to the lumber yard and collect it. And of course, there's driftwood for fuel as well. So we go along, and sometimes the lumber is used to build a beach house. And this is not everybody's idea of a beach house, but it's a very creative beach house. And I happen to think that these structures are amazing. They're creative and they're inventive, and they show a lot of technique. So this is not your typical, or maybe it should be the typical beach house on Block Island, using wood from the lumberyard. And on we go. I came down, I could see the lumberyard and the beach house in the back there. And I picked my way around. I came around this boulder just like this, and I squealed. And I don't squeal often because I almost walked into this baby seal pup. And it was startled. I was startled. I hardly ever yelp. It growled. I stepped back quickly, took a photo, and moved on. This is a gray seal pup, and they start out all white, and they stay on land for the first couple of weeks of their life. The mother stays on land with them. They will nurse on land for about 2 weeks. And then that mother is done. She swims off, and the pup is on its own. And then they lose their white coat and get darker and darker. So you should not get this close to a seal, but I didn't know I was getting this close to this seal pup, and I got away as fast as I could. But the treasures you find, the unexpected treasures. So as you go down the beach, you come to a point where water is running out of the bank. And this is water that's coming out of the Kunamus Pond and swamp area. It drains into the ocean, onto the shoreline every hour of every day of every year. And this water is just flowing out of Block Island. We have a very rich groundwater resource, and it's flowing out in many places around the island. And this is just one. And if the connection was better, I took a little audio here of the water running out. It's just wonderful sound just to stand there and listen to it sort of burbling out of the side of the shoreline. So I highly recommend it. And on we go, take a look back, see where we've come, check out the lumber, go, do I need a tall post for something, pole barn or something? If I was more industrious, I would be using a lot more driftwood from the lumberyard for my outbuildings. And again, a last look back from whence we've come. There's the beach house way down here. The seal is somewhere here. We came around the point, and you can see the edge is greening, right? This is all of the brand new green algae, green seaweed growing on that rocks and starting to cover. And over the next couple of weeks, it'll just get greener and greener and more lush. So we turn our way back towards the land, and I have found the pathway up to Kunamus Road. This log will not always be there, of course, as a marker, but for now it's a nice marker, and it's a very nice bench. Should you want to come, great place to watch a sunset because it's on the west side of the island. And there's the bench right there. Take your little picnic, your evening libations. I suggest water, of course, and enjoy the sunset sitting on a log. That's why we get to live on Block Island. So up the path we go. This is the Cooneymus, and as we go along, we see this what is now a private residence off to the right, but that was once the site and the form of a U.S. life-saving station, of which there were 4 or 5 around the island before there was a Coast Guard. And that's how the U.S. life-saving, I missed a word there, life-saving station would be manned, and they would have boats and dories. Most of these are equipped with a ramp, so the dory would be inside. You could roll the dory out. It would be manned with 6 to 8 oars, and you could go out and attempt rescues of shipwrecks. So great history, and I'll sort of leave it at that. But beautiful structure, beautiful forms, and nice that this homeowner has chosen to keep that. Up we go to the path and take a look back. One more look back at the ocean, and then you come out to the head of the path, which is where the end of what many of us call Kunamus Road ends. Now, technically, Kunamus Road was laid out by the town again in the early 1800s, maybe a little late, mid 1800s. And it runs from the shore. So technically the path is part of the road. And the road went from the shoreline up to Isaac's Corner, which is the intersection by Smiling Through. And I can answer more questions about that if you'd like. The path is not exactly in the location that the original road was, which was a little bit further to the north. You could see that boundary on the early maps, but this is, again, this is a town-owned road. You have every right to walk down there, find a place to park, and better to take your bike. A lot more room for bikes than there are cars. And it is marked by a beach access sign, public beach access. Now, if I were to turn to my immediate left from that, right about here, just off the picture, there's this marker. It's a little bit disrepair. It's a survey marker. This sign is indicating that at the ground level is this. It's a U.S. geodetic benchmark marker, and the marker itself, the useful part is this rod right here. So this is there are several of these benchmarks around the island. They're established at exact elevation by the Geodetic Survey, U.S. Geodetic Survey. This one was put in place in 1998, and they're the sort of the benchmark for which maps, especially coastal maps and navigation charts and surveyors, all have to work from a benchmark elevation so that they're getting true elevation. So there are many of these around the site, several. There are 5 of these benchmark sites. This one is missing its cover, and it says right here, it says title benchmark, unlawful to disturb. I think over here it says information or to report damage, right to blah, blah, blah. So I will be attempting to report that the cover is missing. There's been damage, probably a plow or something, because you can see how it's scraped off here. But this has been missing its top for quite a while. You can see longer than 1 year because it's full of leaves. So that is just sort of an interesting thing to note there, sort of hidden in plain sight. And this is just a shot from my computer showing where the benchmarks are. The green are the title benchmarks that I just showed. I'm not sure, I didn't spend enough time to find out what the orange ones were. Now, I have seen some of it. For instance, I know that benchmark number 6, benchmark number 6 is gone. I think in one of my Great Salt Pond talks, I showed where it used to be, but it had been pried off of its rock. So there are a few of these around, but this is just to show that Black Island's got important benchmarks for setting the elevations, not only for land surveying, but more importantly for navigational purposes. And thank you to Judy Gray, who helped me find this site and enlightened me about what these things were. Up the road we go to Kunamus Pond and Swamp. In the distance, you'll see right here, you can see it well, right? Well, that's a pair of Canada geese. and probably the female probably hasn't quite set up a nest, but they'll probably make a nest. It's ideal habitat for a nest in there. Usually the male is the one that's sort of swimming just offshore, protecting and guarding. A little bit further on, this is the same kind of the goose with a pair of mallards swimming there. And again, there it is, looking very like, okay, I'm patrolling the waters, I'm taking care of things. So I know a lot of people don't like Canada geese, but they are quite a beautiful bird. I wasn't too happy with them this morning when they were honking at, daybreak right on my pond and waking me up a little bit earlier than I wanted to be up, but nonetheless, I love them anyway. So another look into Kunamus Pond. I usually think of Kunamus as a swamp because I find the swamp part a lot more interesting than the open water, although this is a great place for winter ducks as well. We saw some wonderful things this winter, including down in this little mud flat we watched for quite a while, a swamp sparrow picking little insects and scraps of vegetation. And again, just slow down and watch for a while. It's always amazing what you'll end up seeing without going to look for it. What's coming on growing now, and what this part of Kunamus Swamp is known for by many, is the watercress. Of course, this is sphagnum moss here and here, but watercress is just starting to grow in, and by a few weeks it's quite lush and will be lush. Watercress grows all through and around the edges of this pond, even out where I showed the water draining out onto the beach. Right at the edge there, watercress will grow in too. So if you're anxious about going down the edge to get watercress, which is on private property, so I don't necessarily recommend that. I don't recommend it. You could go down to the beach and get a little watercress for your sandwich from the beach side. Of course, cattails are all around. This is a wonderful freshwater wetland plant. A lot of places they're being replaced by Phragmites, but this is a native plant and is much better for the environment, feeds a lot more people, doesn't soak up so much water. Phragmites uses a lot of water, so where Phragmites is, there's always water there, but it's taking up more than you might want to have it take up. It will contribute to the drying out eventually of a pond. So cattails is what you love to see in these swamps and marshes. Now, as you go along the road, you'll notice the water is just running all the time. Even in summer, I often see water, although the water running down the side of the road will diminish in the summertime. But you can see we've just left we're coming from the shoreline, coming this way. Here's the pond, and here's the stream of water running underneath a little culvert under the road out, and it's going into Kunamus. And here's a different place on Kunamus Road where it's running out. I think actually we're looking up here this is the outfall right here. So I'm looking up at the stream, and then I've gone up further, and there's a couple of these like little culverts that are sort of shunting the water down. And at this point, higher up on the road, and I mean closer to the paved road, the water is even seeping out of the bank and through the stone wall and then turning and going down the road. So there's just so much water running into Kunamus Swamp and Pond from many directions, this being only one of them. And as you get up to the headland of that, and you come to Warden's Pond, now there's quite a solid road between Warden's Pond and the drainage ditches I was just showing. So I'm not exactly sure where this flows out, but it surely flows out somewhere towards that. I just like this picture. It kind of gives you, Warden's Pond has got a nice history. It's called Warden's Pond. It's named after the church wardens. It's a sort of a Puritan, colonial term. It's where we get the term for our first and second wardens as sort of warden structures, like they would be the selectmen in the case of the town, but in case of the church structure, warden would be, the chairman of the board, if you will, of a church. And this is upon the Westside Baptist Church, just up the road, further from here. And this is where I'm told the minister would come down and baptize its congregants in Warden's Pond. Right now, it's had for many, many years this little swim raft. I've actually only ever seen cormorants on it, but I think probably people at one point would swim out to it. Kids, I think all the kids that would have all grown up and probably have kids of their own. When I was a kid, there was actually a buoy in there. There was not a swim raft. There was a like a lobster pot buoy attached to a cinder block, and it belonged to Omar Littlefield, who was an old taxi driver on Block Island. And he threw that in there. And when he would come around on his taxi tour, he would say that Block Island had the easiest lobstering around because the lobster would just come up the stream from the ocean and get into his trap right there. And then he could just go down to the pond edge and pull up the lobster trap. Now, of course, none of that is true, except for Omar had a pot there. But Omar was known for his tales, as are probably most of the cab drivers. But I often remember hearing that story about Omar's lobster pot in Warden's Pond. Now it's been replaced by a swim platform, and in the earliest days, it was used for baptismal. To find Warden's Pond, this is where West Side Road, you've just come from the west side, from the New Harbor, and at this point it intersects Kunamus Road. So technically, I always thought Kunamus Road was just this section, but Kunamus Road actually continues on and goes, as I said, up to Isaac's Corner or up to by Smiling Thrill. So this is where West Side Road ends, and Kunamus Road it intersects with Kunamus Road. And that, if you were to go up this road, up Kunamus Road, just a short bit, just up the beginning of the hill, you would be back to your starting point. And I just threw this in because, again, it gives you a sense. Warden's Pond, here's the Kunamus Road that we just came out of. And at the time of this photo, which was last week, the pussy willows were just past their beautiful silver little toes, pussy toe formed, and were covered with their little spikes of pollen, and so it has that yellow fuzz looking to it. So if you're looking for a pussy willow, you can't get to it, but you can sure enjoy it for the viewing. Excuse me. And of course, always my mini bird checklist of the day. All of these birds were seen on the day that I took the photos, most of the photos for this presentation. And we've come into spring, where we now have spring birds such as the osprey, and winter birds such as the ring-necked duck, and always something to look for. And with that, I thank you for your attention and for sticking with me on these walks. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them, and I'll stop sharing. I'll stop sharing my view. And I'll keep sharing myself.
That was great, Kim. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim.
There's a couple things in the chat. Oops, sorry. John's asking about, wasn't Kunamus once called, it was called Cherry Hill Road, or a section of it was called Cherry Road or Cherry Hill Road, right?
So the hill from where I just ended, basically where we start the walk, and the hill goes east, right up the hill. That's called Cherry Tree Hill. And I always knew it as Cherry Tree Hill when I was a kid, because it was the only place really that had the big black cherries, that are wild, that we have all over the island now. That in the 60s and 70s and before, of course, Block Island was a lot more open. It didn't have the shrublands and the trees that we really have now. And so it was distinctive to have those cherry trees on that hill. So it's a section of Kunamus Road. I will say, when I always thought it was Cherry Tree Hill and that connected to the lower part of Kunamus Road, but I've done some digging in the records, and Kunamus Road definitely goes all the way to Isaac's Corner. And that's that section till you get to the basically Black Rock Road is just a section called Cherry Tree Hill.
Got it.
At least that's according to me, and I'm sticking to it.
It was great. The Osprey platform that was built there. Now you can see that from the road. I mean, I know where you said it was Nancy Ruddle's property, because I know
Yep.
there's the back section. I know it has is protected, has an easement on it. But so is it? You can see it from the road. I mean, is it pretty obvious?
So if you take the turn onto Southwest Point Road, and you just not too far into that, you'll see the pond where I looked through the bushes and got the ringneck ducks, and the platform pole is just on the edge of the pond, sort of across it. Now you can see it there, but if you just walk a little bit further and go up on the bank a little bit, so you can get some elevation, especially if you can. That's where I got that shot, and can't wait to go back and see how big the nest is now.
Oh, that's great. So in the chat, so Steph is wondering how long going slowly is this walk, Kim?
Going slowly, I think I did it the day I did it. I probably took an hour and a half, because I was going really slowly. I was stopping, taking pictures, getting sidetracked. Oh my God, there's a seal, that kind of thing. But I think going at a slow pace, it would be an hour, just because of the cobbles and the time on the beach.
Yeah.
The time on the roads doesn't take that much.
Okay.
And I'm glad to do this one as the last one for now, because I have gotten used to the idea that these are archived and may become an important part of the record. And this is the town worked really hard through its planning board to get that right away established for the public. And you never like to see anything overused, but you don't want to see something not used because people don't know or are dissuaded. So I felt really, I really felt strongly that I wanted the public to know about this loop.
Yeah.
That's
I
great.
say the best thing to do is to park on Kunamus Road, on the paved road, and walk it. I wouldn't. I think surfers, and the real point that the planning board back in '84 was making was fishing access, and that's why they wanted to have the parking spots for fishermen, because to carry your 40-pound striped bass all that direction might be a little bit onerous. And that part of the island, there's another traditional fishing path, I believe, very near there, because the slope of the land, if you were to go back and look at the stone wall map, it shows the topography. You can see that the slope of the land there is very gentle. So it can get right down to the beach to collect driftwood, to collect seaweed, to go fishing, to have access. There are traditional fishing access ways there. So the planning board really wanted to make sure the fishermen could continue to have access. Now the surfers really love it. And me. And probably everybody who lives out there.
No, definitely. Great. And we're getting a lot of thank yous. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Susan didn't know about the right of way. So, and Erica said she thoroughly enjoyed this. So it was great.
Great.
It's also nice just thinking, like, if you are walking around Wind Dodge, or if you're going down to, the Dickens Farm Trail, there's, you can add to it, walk further down. It's nice to think about sort of extending your walking, in that area.
I have done the wind dodge. I let her walk one year, or the wind dodge, coming out onto Dickens Farm Road, walking down Dickens Farm Road, and then going on the Southwest Point, and then going down. And that took quite a while.
Yeah.
I think my followers were like, "Are you sure we're going this far?" But so I don't, unless you're out for the day, you know, and you're taking your picnic lunch and you're gonna enjoy a swim and then whatever, you're gonna take a good chunk of time. Probably not a good idea, but yeah, we've got some great walks down there. Dickens Farm is one of my favorite spots as well. So. And I think we did a Zoom on Dickens Farm.
I think we did.
Way
We
back.
did. I'm sorry. We did.
So, you know, you
It must be
could
in the archive.
learn- Yeah. I have to figure out how to, I guess we've got those organized now.
Well, we do. So yeah, I'll put it in the chat, but I have given this up before that, you know, as we record these, we upload them to our website, natureblockisland.org. And so if you go there, they're actually all on a YouTube channel for the Nature Conservancy. But if you go there, you can see the ones, the descriptions, and you can watch any of the recordings in the past. I may not have the last one up yet, but there's a little bit of delay getting them up and going. But yeah. Oops. Oh, you got an airplane there, Kim. So any other questions?
Must be an east wind. Any other questions?
No, well, it's a beautiful day here, so I hope it's wherever you are, get out and enjoy it.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to say that I'm planning a full schedule this coming season of walks, daily walks, and bird banding, and horseshoe crab tagging, and all those good things. So hope to see you all in person in the coming months. That'd be awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, thanks, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.